Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I hope you're good. I hope you're well. It is 6 p.m. in the UK time. It's time for Evening Brews. I hope everyone is good and well. I will be joined by Phil very, very shortly. He's just running a bit late due to the central line, but I hope everyone is good and well. Just let people know a lot of this chat today will be about Danny Rose's interview that he did on Gambling Zone. I've watched the whole interview as well on YouTube. I don't know if people have seen it. We will be going into it in detail. You will see pinned at the top of the show, and Phil will talk about it. The walk that we've discussed before. Here are the links. If any of you guys want to donate to Phil's charity walk that he is doing on Saturday, there are two links there for two very worthwhile charities. And just so people know, we aren't the official publishers of these charities, but we are finding a way somehow to be able to promote charities and help people. Unlike a certain owner, they are there. You can use that. If you are in a position where you were going to send a super chat today, please don't, and donate it to Phil's charities that he will be talking about a lot more when he gets here. But whilst we're waiting for him, let's just go through the chat and address and say hello to everyone. So first of all, our very own Roadman is in the chat. So big up to you, good sir. Mr. Sweden is in the house. Big up to you, man. I'll address these whilst we wait for Phil. I'm nowhere near saying the first part, but you're damn right that I will say the second part. Levy out. That guy, just when you think he can't get any lower, he surprises many people. Not people like yourself and myself, Tony, but I hope you're good. I hope you're well. Dan, who was on yesterday, big up to you. Big up to all the family that's watching. He was incredible, and I hope people looked into the Tottenham Hero link that I put in there and have subscribed to his channel because he really is trying to do some incredible things. Andrew Gregory, big up to you. Yep, still waiting for Philly. Matty, big up to you, mate. I hope you're good and well. Colin Crossamano is in the building. Nigel, good friend of the channel, big up to you. And channel member, big up to you. Who else have we got here? Rata, Nick's here, big up. I hope you're good and well, buddy. I hope all is well with you. Ring Keswick, big up to you, channel member. Mark C, channel member, big up to you. Shawnee Slater, my brother, I hope you're good and well. Who else is here? Eugene, big up to you, good sir. Fran, one of my nearest and dearest, I hope you're good and well. Chris Agambar, big up, brother. And of course, International Observer, I hope you're good. Yeah, do you know what? I think I'm at the moment, I am putting in as much as I can because obviously as of Monday, I'm going to be out of action for a bit. I'm going for my surgery on Monday. I will be off YouTube for a couple of weeks. I may come on this channel without my camera on, or who knows, I might have a Harry Kane face mask on. Who knows? So I will be absent. I am literally getting up to do Ange management after the North London derby. And as I finish that, I'm making my way to the hospital for my surgery. Big up Brian Maguire. I hope you're good and well, channel member. And James Hunter is here as well. Big up to you. Let me just message Phil and see how far away he is. Because if he's going to be a little bit longer, I will start going through the Danny Rose interview. How far away are you? By the way, before I go into this and everything, have people seen, watched, or read what Danny Rose has had to say? Danny Rose, who is obviously a very outspoken character and ex-player. Have people heard the interview or seen the tweets? Let me know, people, and let me know what you thought. Big up, Richard, a fellow Canadian. I know I can almost call myself a fellow Canadian because I am more than eligible to go for my citizenship, and it is something I cannot wait to do and call myself an actual official Canadian not an Englishman in Toronto, a Canadian in Toronto. But good morning to you, sir. But Eric Ten Hag is down to Eric Nine Hag. It could be 8 Hag after the weekend. We'll see. Shawnee, thank you very much, brother. I saw you mention that in Morning Brews when I watched it. I hope all is good and well with you, buddy. Let's have a look. I'm waiting for Phil P. Thank you very much. Yeah, there will be. So you guys know, I am having a meeting with all the guys from Tottenham on tour today to discuss what's going on. And there will be evening brews still. There will be evening brews. Phil P is just logging in. David, big up to you. My roomie is here. Big up, Tom81 channel member. Hey, Hughes, I haven't seen you for a bit, buddy. Hope you're good and well. Big up to Stuart. Tweaky is in the house as well. And Max Lyon. Now, Phil is logging in, so we'll wait a couple of secs for Phil to get here. Then we are going to dive into Danny Rose's interview. I've watched it full, so there's a few little bits that have been left out on this bit, which I'll add to it. But I've also done it in chronological order. When he did the interview with, I keep forgetting his name, but it used to be on Match of the Day. They had a very big interview where Danny Rose spoke quite openly, like he always does, and I've had the privilege of meeting Danny Rose's dad and spoken to Danny Rose's dad on certain things on many occasions. A lovely guy called Nigel. So waiting for Phil, and then we will get into things. Thank you very much indeed, Marcus. People will know my health has been struggling for quite a while. And hopefully this is the first part of it. They're actually keeping me in overnight, which wasn't the plan, but now they've decided because of everything else going on, they want to monitor me. Then I've got an appointment with my neurologist to have a deeper look into what is going on with my memory and my brain. So yeah, do you know what? Whilst we're waiting for Phil, because he did say he was logging in, but let's get into this. Let's start getting into this. So the first thing, and like I said, I'm going to do this in chronological order. The first thing he mentioned was about why he didn't make his Spurs debut till 3 years after joining the club. And Danny Rose has said that Harry Redknapp and Tim Sherwood told me that my attitude wasn't correct and I need to improve it. After that, there was a change in how I trained, how I approached training, just a huge shift in my mentality. Tim will tell you that. Ever since then, Tim has been my biggest, not fan, but mentor. He pushed and pushed for me to get into the team. Without Tim, I'm not sure I would have got the opportunities that I did at Spurs. Now, he does also go on to mention on this that when he went on his loan spell to Sunderland, if it hadn't been for that loan, he actually says Martin O'Neill was the best man manager he ever had. But it's very, very good to see. Tim Sherwood gets a bum deal from everyone, doesn't he? He gets a real bum rap for his management and the way a lot of Spurs players like Jan Vertonghen couldn't stand him. But if you look back now, Danny Rose and Harry Kane are two people that Tim Sherwood has heavily influenced in his career. I mean, what do you guys make of the comments? Oh, here he is. We'll get Phil to comment. Here he is. Phil, listen, you're going to get a fine. You're going to get a fine. I don't know what the fine is, but we'll discuss that backstage. No, actually, the central line is, how are you, buddy? You're on mute. Now I can hear you.
Jesus. I hope Sunday goes better than today.
Or hope Saturday does, buddy. Hope Saturday, most importantly. Before we get into everything, you can't hear me. I can't hear you now. Oh, you got to love live YouTube. You've got to love live YouTube. Can you hear me now, Phil? Log out and log back in. Log out and log back in.
Hello, mate. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can't hear you. What?
Log out and log in. 1 second. Let me just send him a message in the private chat. Good old live TV or live YouTube. I've just sent him a message. Check the private chat.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Crystal. Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh,
So we're
thank
binning
you.
off headphones. We're binning off everything else. My headphones are in as good a state as Odegaard's ankle. So,
Okay. Okay, we'll take
fine.
that. We'll take that. But first of all, how are you, brother?
I'm good. I'm good. Little bit of stress late in the afternoon, but nothing we can't handle.
It's North London Derby week. It's all full of stress. But right,
Absolutely.
what we were talking about first, mate, was I've sent you all the screenshot. I'm doing it chronological. Obviously about Danny, and Danny talking about why he didn't get his 3-year, didn't get start 3 years, and they said it was down to attitude. What do you make of that?
It's one of those where I think he sort of owned it. He's sort of at the end. He sort of said, almost like there was a change. So he didn't go as far as saying I had to make a change. I need to sort my life out. But he's basically saying there was an attitude change, and then Tim, being Tim Sherwood, sort of became like my mentor, etc. So then it was like, he sort of said that's what made the difference. That's when it all started, and he was my biggest advocate. So I think it, like always, and look, whether you like him, loathe him, whatever you think of the comments he's made over the years, and obviously we'll go through all of these comments he's made on this article or sort of quoted in these tweets. I think, and sometimes to his not to his benefit, I think Danny Rose is always very honest, and I think he's just being that in that statement. I think maybe his attitude wasn't where it was or where it needed to be. He's changed it, and that's when he actually got into the first team, and obviously we know what happened from there.
Exactly. Well, we talk about it. The next one he talks about is obviously his debut goal, and let's face it, I don't think there will ever be a more famous or better debut goal, where he goes on to say, it's funny that because I would never ever do that now. That was more out of nerves. In that, I didn't want to try to control the ball and lose it, and then Arsenal go on the counter-attack. Now, I'd probably do anything but shoot. I'd look to control it, try to nutmeg somebody. I'll do anything but shoot. That was purely from not wanting to lose the ball. Luckily, I connected it well. I mean, connected it with it well is a bit of an understatement.
Yeah.
Mate, do you know what? That I actually applaud that, because if you imagine if he had lost that and they had gone on the attack, that game we had to win to try and stop them getting above us.
Listen,
mate,
I'm going to say this, right? What he's saying there rings a bell with someone who couldn't be further from the place where Danny Rose sits in my heart. Okay. A certain TalkSport presenter once scored an amazing goal at Portman Road. Hopefully we'll all be there very soon, supporting the Spurs away again. But in the sort of early to mid-90s, he said, I saw the ball drop into Jason Dazelle, another one Exodus Parish, and I thought, I've got to get it clear. He hacked it away. It's flown and gone straight in the top bins, and Mr. Cundy got an unbelievable goal, which you can only sort of dream of. He probably got a nosebleed even crossing the halfway line, the lad. But I think that sort of reeked the same thing. It was almost like, look, I don't want to mess up. I don't want to make a mistake. I definitely don't want the ball going down the other end. I'm just going to, smash it and see what happens. And that's what Rosie did. And, as you say, will there ever be another better debut goal? Probably not. Definitely not in the North London derby. The only thing I would say, as much as it's obviously got pride of place in our history now, and certainly modern North London derbies, I think Almunia is all over the gaff. I think he should have been just saving that in his cap. So, God bless Danny for having a dig. God bless his honesty again. And Tony in the chat is sort of always referencing back his honesty too. But look, ultimately, the keeper's had an absolute shocker. And long may it continue. Exactly. More keepers having shockers. from the red dressing room in the North London derby, please.
Exactly. So we move on to the next one. Like I said, I've tried to do this chronologically.
Yeah.
Then he speaks about the Champions League final, and obviously he's gone on to say, had we not given away the penalty in 30 seconds or whatever, maybe we could have won. Because what happened there, basically 3 weeks of training had completely gone out the window in 30 seconds. Now, he even went on to say, and I think it's the bigger point, he mentions in this interview a few things. He mentioned a lot about the Pochettino time. And I didn't know this. Apparently, Pochettino recorded everything in the training ground. From when you walked in, so he knew what time you walked in. He recorded the training sessions to see how you acted. And he was also going on about, like, for that time, during his reign, the training was so key there. And he also met the most important thing he mentioned is the whole club was fuming that Mr. Dembele went, because they all thought if Mr. Dembele was there for that Champions League final, we would have won it. Which obviously is should have. But 3 weeks training up in 30 seconds. I didn't even look at it that way at the time to think that 3 weeks prep. But you got to agree with him, haven't you?
Yes and no. I mean, obviously, completely agree with the fact that, you don't have to be a Spurs fan. Anyone who looks at that game will tell you, basically our goose was cooked after 26 seconds or whenever it was awarded. And of course, that's the biggest sliding doors moment in modern Spurs history.
Yep.
And we obviously all regret it. I think a lot of the people in the chat have made comments in the past about this. I've never watched it back. I can't bring myself to watch it back, and I don't think I ever will. But the only thing I would say, look, he's talking from the heart again. It is exactly that. I think it blew out a lot of our plans. Obviously, it did, right? The problem I have with it isn't necessarily a problem with Danny Rose. Maybe it's a criticism of Poch. But ultimately, in the end, if you've got, they talk in the military about your plan doesn't usually last first contact with the enemy. Ultimately, you have got to plan for all eventualities. Correct. Somewhere along that game, whether it happens after 26 seconds, whether it happens after half an hour, whether it happens in the 88th minute, you might find yourself ahead. Hopefully, we would have found ourselves ahead in the game. It didn't happen. But you might find yourself trailing to Liverpool. What next? Okay.
Yeah.
What next? What are you going to do to change the narrative of just, look, Spurs have lost to Liverpool. We got an unlucky penalty decision against us. All these things, absolutely, they're valid, they're true. We now look at those, and those were the deciding factors. But really, the manager, the coaches, the playing staff have got to react. They've got to look and think, what can we do to change this? And the problem we have as fans, and the problem we have as a club, is we didn't do enough during the rest of the 90-odd minutes or however long it was with injury time to actually change the game. And look, I've got sympathy. I can understand what he's saying. And of course, the game plan went out the window. But then you've got to dig deep and go again, because
correct.
We all know in life, it's not all sunshine and roses. You will get punched in the face. It's not then what you had planned. It's how you're going to address the situation that's in front of you. How are you going to recover?
Phil, I'm just going to say before we go on to the next one, and the next one is the famous Googling quote, and I'm going to add a few bits into what Danny Rose actually said in it. But before that, I mentioned it at the beginning about how we're not the official publicist, but we're going to promote your charity, unlike a certain owner does with another charity.
Yeah.
Someone has just donated to your Parkinson's charity.
Yes, Chris.
Now, I have it pinned at the very, very top of the chat, and I'm going to go right back to the top of it. Or let me, Phil, just tell people, whilst I've got this up there, that this is pinned in the chat. And as I said to people, if anyone was thinking of giving super chats for the rest of this week, please don't give them to us. Please give them to either one of Phil's charities. Phil, tell people what you're doing and what these charities are.
So, as I'm sure we'll touch on at some point, if you're not already obsessed by it, and your local media aren't, probably we're all thinking about it every waking moment of the day and probably while we're asleep as well. This Sunday might be an important match of football. But I thought it'd be a good idea, instead of just relaxing and getting myself fully prepped and maybe, getting my position in the Antwerp Arms ready from early doors. I thought, let's go with work to the Peak District. Let's walk about 25k, 30k, and I'll come back to why there's a discrepancy there in a moment. But essentially, it was done before the fixture list was announced. Every so often, me and the gang from work will try and do something for charity. We've done this up in the Peak District a couple of times, and it's really good, because essentially what we do, we go up, we have a good laugh, bit of camaraderie. Hopefully we raise a bit of money for charity, and the good thing is, because of who we work for, they try and match pound for pound what we raise. So anything that you give, my work will basically double it. So please fill your boots on that regard. But also, if you are a UK taxpayer, and I know not everyone that watches is UK, of course you can do the gift aid thing as well. But the reason why I say it might be 25k, it might be 30k, when we've done this in the past, we've got lost. So actually, you might get more than you paid for. You might get an even more tired version of me if you bump into me on Sunday. But rest assured, everyone, once I've raised money for charity and hopefully given good karmic and energy out into the universe, which hopefully we'll get back in all sorts of decisions and bad goalkeeping from the red dressing room on Sunday, I will be winging my way back. I'm booked in on the 8:37 train out of Hope in Derbyshire to make sure I'm back in King's Cross just after 12, to make sure I'm at the home of football in time for a certain game of football on the Sunday. So I'll be there up in block 258, still cheering the boys on. Big up 258. But yeah, look, anyone, if you've got any shekels to spare, it will be greatly appreciated. Make it worthwhile. I don't think you can on a Parkinson's charity, but on the Dreams Come True charity, if you can, when you donate, give me a shout out. Say it's from Phil P. That would be phenomenal. But look, anyone got any spare cash? And even if you haven't, what's an overdraft between friends? Do what you can, people. We live in tough times. We give what we get back, and we try and pay it forward and all that good stuff. But yeah, look, if you've got the will to do it and you want to stop me rambling on, please do it. And look, massive respect to you, Brian, for helping me out on this. It's
Always.
Nothing but love. But yeah, listen, everyone in the chat, I love you. All of you that already know me, it's nothing but love. I try and throw out good positivity, but as some of you who have sat with me in football matches before, it then does turn very sour during a match, which is why we never do any fan cams up in 258, because
I can imagine.
obviously
They can't be done.
People
let's have a
very
look.
differently.
So we've got Tom, who's actually put in, my mother-in-law has Parkinson's, so I understand the trauma not only comes with it, but to the family. So this is a fantastic cause, and I will be donating. And Chris, who did just put it in, said you've already raised over £2,305 of the 2,500 target. So well done to everyone that does donate. But let's get back now. Like I said, if anyone was thinking or is thinking of putting a super chat in, please don't, and go put that in one of the charities that Phil is doing this incredible walk for. So let's get on to Danny Rose. Anytime, brother, anytime for you. Now let's get on to Danny Rose, and let's get on to Googling. He said, I'm not saying it's just the chairman making the signings. There have been some directors of football who really need to be answering some questions about the players brought into this football club. Now, before I get you to respond to this, Phil, I'm going to add some more things that Danny Rose said himself. Not what I said. I've watched this interview in full. First of all, he said, I won't apologize for saying that, because it is true. He also managed, when they were speaking about this subject, they also spoke about when they went away on England duty, and obviously all the lads started speaking about what they're on and whatever. People started laughing at the Spurs players. He then added, which he didn't want to go into detail, but Ben Foster actually had this information that the win bonuses at Tottenham Hotspur. You think of win bonuses: beat the filth, win a cup, win a semi-final. The bonuses only kicked in if you beat them by 2 clear goals. So you could beat Liverpool 1-0 at Anfield, something we haven't done for years. Nope, it's not by 2 clear goals. But most importantly, when it came to Danny Rose and the whole Googling thing, he then went on to add that there was a player that was a friend of his in the England camp that Spurs were interested, and Spurs started talking to. And Tottenham Hotspur offered him less than he was at his current club. Now, shock horror that would happen at this football club. But Danny Rose refused to say this, but he did say, and I will give him credit with this, he did say what you saw there. He did say this wasn't just aimed at Daniel. There are many directors of football there that need to be asked the hard questions, which, funnily enough, they never were, i.e. Steve Hitchin. But yeah, that Googling comment, that was when he did the famous interview for The Sun, wasn't it? And obviously that set the cat amongst the pigeons, didn't it, Phil?
Look, again, I think it's one of those things where Danny's probably not done himself any favours in the past by being, almost, what is it? Sunlight is the best detergent. He has shone a light into and behind the curtain sometimes at things that have gone on at Spurs, things that have gone on in football generally. He talked about the fact that he was actually looking forward. I'm sure it was something along the lines of he was actually looking forward to when he retire and he wasn't going to stay in football because he felt it's racist. And ultimately, as a black man, he's probably much more and better positioned than I am to talk on that subject. But, he speaks his mind. It's not for everyone. But ultimately, the Googling comments, you can say what you like, right? Spot on at the time.
Yep.
What he's saying here, look, I almost want to go back in my own mind, but just to let you know, Brian, and the people know, there was an era during the Poch position where I thought we were maybe starting to see the fruition of what Levy and Smoking Joe were trying to do with the club, i.e. buy young, particularly British talent, through the Yol days, that was, and then continued into Redknapp, etc. But maybe Pochettino was the pinnacle of this, and it was starting to bear fruition. And at the time, what I was hearing was the bonus structure was such that the actual fixed salary element was quite low, but a lot was incentivized. So if you won, if you did things, if you scored goals, that's when it will boost up. And I thought, look, at the end of the day, environments I've worked in, that's how you get good performance out of people. Yeah. To be fair, I mean, let's now bring it back to reality and where we now see in the full light of day how the club's being run with the 2024 crystal clear vision, looking back at this stuff. Ultimately, and what I've always said, and whether this plays into why we haven't won anything, I don't know. But a lot of the time, you do feel like when a player is signed for Spurs and they've agreed to some of the terms and conditions, some of the contract stipulations, you do just feel, is there a problem whereby the player is willing to take a punt that this step in my career is the right one, but ultimately it'll lead to the right goals and where I want to be eventually. But I'm almost willing to be diddled on day one by this club to get me to where I want to go. I'm backing myself that much. Or is it the case that, look, this is the best I can do at the moment? But if you're willing to be diddled on day one with these type of things, what are we doing? Like, Brian, if you're going for a new job, right, and say Danny Rose's mate in England squad is looking for a new club, and he can go to club A, which will match or better, forget everything else, right? Forget ambition, forget whether they're Champions League, whether they're going for the title, whether they're fighting relegation. The first thing that a player will look at, same as everyone else, what's the money?
Correct.
What is the money, right? Because best will in the world, I'd love to think that all the players play for Spurs, play football generally for the love of the game. That is definitely why they started, and I hope some of them have still got that little candle of light. But majority of them, it is a job, and it is what's putting food on their table. They could get their leg broken tomorrow, and they may never play again. Okay.
Yep.
Hopefully, we'll all go and see an after dinner speech by them. Hopefully, they'd still be able to make a few quid. They are not going to be earning the same money they are now.
Correct.
Bottom line. Okay. So, in the end of the day, the players have got, they're human beings. Are you going to go to Spurs where you take a pay cut, or are you going to stay where you are? It's a simple equation. Like, you'd have to be diehard Spurs. You'd have to be a diehard Spurs fan, or maybe have a screw loose and pick Spurs, right? Like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? Unbelievable.
Yep. Listen, you can still say, and we're going to. I'm going to get your reaction at the end of this show to the Pleat, Levy, eyes and ears, blah blah, data. We'll deal with that later. But the whole Googling thing was right at the time. To a certain extent, it's still right now. But just quickly before we go to the next one, Chris Peters just become a channel member. So thank you very much indeed for your support of the channel. Right, the next one was his relationship with Jose. Just a normal player-manager relationship. He came in and explained that he wanted to build up with a 3, and he mentioned that Ben Davies is probably more ideal for him in that role. I don't think I disagree with him there, because I like to attack and get forward as much as defending. So that was that, and you have to respect every manager's decision. There's not much to report now. He did go on to say, which isn't been put here, his relationship with Jose was very much good morning, good afternoon, how are you, yada, yada, yada. It was just, we all think, we've seen Harry Redknapp and Pochettino, and they all think it's all lovey-dovey and huggy. And we've seen it now with Ange, how he's tried to be very at one with the team, but give them their space. Not every manager in every football ground or every walk of life is going to be the best managers to work with. And we all know Jose rustles some feathers, but again, that is very, very honest with himself and to the interviewer and the fans, and agreeing that Ben Davies was probably the better one for the back 3. But he goes on to say, like I said, Jose, it was just a normal manager relationship, Phil.
Look, basically, this goes back to the earlier point. These people are professionals. Okay, we all love the romantic notion of the Redders or we don't even know too much about the Yol era, but it gave us that sort of fatherly or uncle nephew relationship with some of the players. But ultimately, and even Ange now, he talks about the fact that he likes to keep his distance from the players because he's got to make decisions about leaving people out, etc. The famous one we've always got this thing of, it's like a band of brothers and they're all, in it mucking out together, and they're rock solid as a crew all together, one for all for one, all that sort of stuff. We'd love that to be true. I hope it is true. I hope it's true at Spurs at the moment. Ultimately, one of the most successful teams in my lifetime was the Man U treble winning side of '99.
Yep.
Okay. The only person that, won a trophy that wasn't Man U that year is a certain famous football club from North London, and it's not Enfield Town or Barnet. Yeah, or anyone from South London. They didn't get near it. But they did play an important part in the semi-final, which we all like. Big up Ryan Giggs, but not for anything else you did. But essentially, right, you look at that, and Solskjaer and Sheringham and York and Cole, Cole and Sheringham couldn't stand each other. Correct. Literally couldn't stand each other. They've talked about this endlessly since their playing careers ended. And you know what? It worked on the pitch. They won everything they could lay their hands on, except the League Cup. So you don't always need to be. This is why it's called show business and not show friends. Correct. Sometimes it's got to be, sometimes you've got to just dig deep and get on with the job. And I think this is where Rosie's talking about here. Look, he doesn't have it. And this is a funny thing. It'd be really easy for what happened to him and how the career at the club ended. I know there's going to be other comments to come about this. But it'd be really easy for him to go in and say, Jose did me dirty and, blah, 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 a man like me and England and what I'd done for the club. None of that. He just was like, he's told me he wanted to play. And remember, Jose was playing with two centre halves, and one of the fullbacks would sit, and the other one would bomb on. And so basically, he thought, Ben Davies was better fit. And Rosie understood that. He understood the, the philosophy, the rationale behind it. Yeah, great. He just got on with the job. So you've got to actually give a lot of credit to Rose for his attitude in this, I think.
Correct. Well, the next two we're going to do, I'm going to roll into one because it's all around the same time. So we are going to talk. 1 second. Why has it gone like that? I don't know why it's all of there. We go. My screen went blue. So we're going to talk about, obviously, this was a bit about Amazon. Obviously, I'm going to read this into two. So Danny Rose on precipitations of the last 18 months. People going off what happened in the Amazon thing. You shouldn't believe everything that you hear and see on there because ultimately that's fabricated to make the club look as good as possible, even if the stuff couldn't be further from the truth. Shots fired, and obviously the first thing I do, and I always say this with the Amazon documentary, when you saw Jose Mourinho's contract getting drafted up, instead of being in the elusive Spurs boardroom where you would do it, you've got all solicitors around the breakfast table doing what they do, because that's where you do all your legal stuff amongst the players. But he goes up.
But Dagul, you've got to remember, Steve Hitchen didn't even have an office, mate. He's just skulking around like the breakout table, trying to find out his motivation for doing deals in January, while bothering the poor person from catering and seeing if she could make him another cappuccino. So maybe Spurs, for the beautiful training ground that we have, best in the world, just got to get that in there. Do you know what I mean? Big up Daniel if you're watching. I've got your back, Levy. Don't worry about that.
This.
Yeah, I'm sure he's watching.
This.
Yeah, but you two are touch tight, right? So I'm sure.
Definitely.
Maybe you'll watch it on the rewatch. Do you know what I mean? Hopefully he's busy at the moment doing other things. Like trying to find David Pleat a meeting room. Maybe this is what it goes down to. Maybe Pleaty couldn't get a meeting room to sell his books and do a press launch because no one's got any meeting rooms. Maybe they're all just bars. Maybe it's all just selling fried chicken.
Maybe. But the best
maybe
thing
that's what it comes down to. Levy's so commercially minded. Every single square foot of Spurs real estate is about commercial enterprise. There's no one's got an office. I mean, even look at Mourinho, one of the most successful managers in the history of football, and he had an office the size of a shoebox. Do you know what I mean?
He did, and I just remember him telling Sky Sports News to fuck off and turn the TV off. But this is the bit, and he does go on about this, and he speaks about it in a bit more on the interview. And he says, Danny Rose, on knowing with 18 months left on his Spurs contract, wouldn't be renewed. He goes, that's football. I had a meeting with the chairman. I told him that I wasn't leaving until my contract was finished and that I wanted to honour my contract. I told him that I knew what was coming. I knew they'd take my number off me. I knew they'd send me to the under-23s. And he looked at me and said he didn't know what... he looked at me like he didn't know what language I was speaking, as to say they'd never do that to me. And then I returned on the first day of pre-season and they do exactly that. So it wasn't a shock. In the end, I honoured my contract, and that's all there is to it. Now, he does also go to say this happened, and he listed off a list of names where the Spurs players knew that this was coming. He mentions two people that I can remember off the top of my head to begin with, in David Bentley and Janssen, and we all know those didn't apply themselves the best. Janssen didn't settle. Bentley did himself no favours. But again, and he goes on to say about how Spurs have a reputation within the club of, when your time's up, and they just literally do this to you. And obviously we saw again in the documentary him going looking for Daniel's office, and they made the big thing about that. But he's spot on right. Apparently at Spurs, this is how we do things, that when your time's up, they will strip you of your dignity. Rather than it'll just be off you go, piss off. Rather than getting rid of them and selling them, they'll just hang them out to pasture, Phil.
Look, I think there's two elements to this. And actually, going back to something on the last comment, I know I went down a bit of a sort of comedy offshoot, but or my version of comedy. Look, I think he's spot on. The Amazon doc obviously goes a certain way. And I'd never taken that to be, a lot of people slated Rosie for that and was like, oh, I'm off to see Daniel. Like, this isn't the last you'll hear of this sort of thing. Or, almost like a Karen type of mentality, like, who's your man, who's the manager here? Let me go and see your superior. I never had it like that. I just took it to be there were already conversations happening, about, transfers, etc., etc. And that goes on to this point. I think the key thing here is, and the only sort of criticism I think one could have of Danny Rose in this situation is, absolutely fine if you want to run down your contract for all the reasons. You'll end up somewhere and you'll get, a better payday and better terms and conditions when you go on a free, because the purchasing club or your new club won't have to pay any sort of fee to Spurs. Understand that completely. But if he'd wanted to, if he'd been motivated to, could he and maybe should he have found a new club? Now, we all know, has Milan called, all these sort of memeable quotes, whatever. Now, that's the bit I don't know, and the criticism could be leveled at him. Was he doing enough? Shouldn't he have just gone? A career's a very short thing. Should he have just gone and tried to play football? Should he have just gone and got out of what probably was a really wretched existence, when a player that had been one of our best performing players in our best Pete Poch team is suddenly surplus to requirements and just binned off to the under 23s? But one thing I want to mention, he hasn't said it in there, but anyone that's seen his comments and the speeches that he made about his time with the under 23s when his contract did come to an end, it sounds to me like he took on the sort of big brother role. He threw himself into that situation and he really did the best he could in a very difficult set of circumstances. Very professional, just got on with it and did, to the truest sense of the word, honour his contract. So whatever you think about him, I thought that was very classy. How he dealt with that situation ultimately was very classy. Now, on the flip side, the one thing I would say, and, we will have a point of view on this based on what we think of the player. Probably with Bentley, probably with Janssen, we'd be like, good riddance to bad rubbish. You haven't performed, your attitude isn't the best, or your ability is not the best. Bin them off to reserves. Always used to be the sort of thing. Now, obviously, one of the long-suffering under 23s, you got put up with some has-been that we don't want to play in the first team anymore. But with a player you like, you feel more sympathy with them. And again, that's just
right.
how
you're right. You're right.
But with these sort of situations, obviously the player, the club, everyone would be better off if they just left. And so, and Ndombele, we've cancelled his contract. A lot of people are calling for it. Obviously, there is a monetary value to that. We probably had to pay the bloke off. In certain situations, and I think maybe in the past, and maybe Levy has taken more counsel on this, who knows, they might have said, well, look, I'm not going to write down a loss. I will just let them rot in the reserves. Maybe the occasional prod to the player, prod to their agent, get him out of here. Otherwise, I will just let him sit and rot in the reserves. Because Levy didn't want to take a write down and a haircut on the contracts. Now that seems to have changed a little bit. They just want, the players that aren't making it anymore to get out. Who knows? It's very unfortunate. I was personally sad to see how Rosie's time at Spurs ended from the point of view of how he was treated in that way. But I think he made the best possible sort of a bad job.
Yep, you're right. You're right. And the final ones are basically, and it was basically on Ange Postecoglou. I went to Old Trafford last season and watched them play versus United and watched them live. Seeing how they play, I left the game asking friends, do you think this team could be like the one I was part of? Then he actually also went on to say he fell asleep during the Newcastle game that we lost. But the games he has seen, he's like, how have Spurs lost them? And then the final part he was asked was about if he thinks Spurs are title contenders. And he said, I'm not sure I can say that because I find it really disrespectful to City, who have been there year after year since Guardiola got there. Disrespectful to Liverpool, who have been there or thereabout year in, year out. and now the filth that are there too. So for me, I don't think Spurs have earned the right to say they're being title challenges this year. I don't think it's fair to say that just yet. I mean, Danny just being as truthful as ever. Anyone that thinks we are challengers, I just don't understand it.
To be fair, I think he's put a very diplomatic slant on that from the
Yes.
point of view of, maybe out of respect for Spurs to say you're having a laugh on you. The comment before interested me.
Let's go back. I'll bring it up.
What's your reading of that, Brian? Because I didn't know. I got my first reading of it was he was so impressed with how we played away at Old Trafford that he was thinking and saying to his muckers, "Do you think this could be like Prime Poch? Are they on that level?" That was my first reading of it. But there's a little bit, like any text or tweet, there's a little bit of chance of could you be read that a bit more the other way of saying, what do you think about this? Almost I maybe just because of negative connotations, you wonder, look, is this all it's cracked up to be? But I took it to be that he was impressed with the patterns of play and how we go about things.
Yep. I've looked at another. I mean, this is also why I always do voice notes, because you know exactly what I'm saying and how I'm saying it. I look at it personally. If someone said to me, Pig Poch or this Ange team, Pig Poch every single day and twice on a Sunday smashes, and I mean annihilates this current team. I actually look at it and thinking, is that more asking Danny Rose, do you think he could play well as left back in this team? Not so. I look at it a completely different way, saying if you put Danny Rose in a left back, listen, we all know Destiny is going to be great, and he has been great going forward. There are some question marks defensively, and when to use his strength and when not. But I think, can you imagine if we had Pete Danny Rose to be competing right now with Destiny?
Oh.
Then that's the way I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it, could Danny Rose be asked? Could that be asked? Would Danny Rose suit being? I mean, I don't know what people in the chat think. What's your thoughts?
Look, I definitely think he'd have a shot. Pete Rose was something to behold. But again, look, Danny is one of like a group of players which I'd put. I mean, to a certain extent, you could put all of the players in there, but I would say the biggest improvement. I know Walker as well. That's why some people called him the fullback whisperer, didn't they?
Yeah.
But I think Danny Rose, Kane, and Dembele, right, all players that you could see talent, you could see the ability to a greater extent or another, right? But when Poch came in, I think they really sort of it somehow seemed to click with them, whether it was the double or triple sessions, especially with. I don't think it was the same with Danny on this respect, but certainly with Kane and with Dembele, they looked a few pounds lighter. No disrespect to their regimen before, but they looked a few pounds lighter, but they were sharper, and it meant they could elevate their game to the next level. Rose, and I think G. Nev has talked about this, he was part of England camps beforehand when G. Nev was an England coach. And it was almost like, he was good, but he was just thereabouts. But then when he stepped up and it was the Prime Poch era, it was almost like blow your hair back. What's happened to this guy?
Yep.
And so, look, you've got to give Poch credit, but I'll give a massive amount of credit always to the players, because they're the ones that have got to take this on board. They're the ones that have got to live the life and dedicate themselves. So I think your question is, could he adapt? Could he do this? 110%.
Yeah.
Rosie, wouldn't be a problem. In fact, I mean, for me personally, and the one thing I would always say when talking about Rosie, and, again, people deride him for his, have Milan called comments. If I were picking a fullback that I either wanted to stay at Spurs, or if I was a manager at anything to do with another club, and in that era, who would I have bought? I'd have bought Rose 8 times out of 10 rather than Walker. He was a better player for me than
You reckon?
Walker. Yeah, 100%. Kyle has gone on to do phenomenal things, had a phenomenal career. I've got nothing against him, apart from maybe his family life, which maybe I would say I personally would have done, which I haven't done. You'd be pleased to know. You know, you don't have to lock up your wife next time you're in London or anything like that. But see me at the airport going the other way with a few kids. But look, in the end of the day, Rosie, high quality at his peak, phenomenal player. So could he do a job? Look, Destiny's only just starting out. He's a young guy.
Correct.
I don't want to build him up too much, but he's got all the attributes, got a great attitude. You know, the first time I saw him was at the friendly last year against oh my God, who was it against? Shakhtar. And I knew straight away, I was like, he looked like he'd lost the ball, but he bodied someone and sort of just spun them off the ball. And I was just like, this guy's a unit. He's physical. And I thought, he's got all the key ingredients you want from a modern fullback. So, like, but if you could turn back time, shout out Cher, I would say Rosie would be phenomenal to have in the squad to push him even further. And it'd be a great battle to have. You know, what an option to have as a manager for Ange. Should I pick prime Danny Walker? That would be even better.
That would be the best way to do it. Or Carl Rose. Carl Rose, mate.
Yeah, Carl Rose. Absolutely.
But you know what, Phil? I want to get yours because we're going to wrap up after we've had this discussion and picked up your charity again. I will keep bringing this up until the club come out and say something about it, because I've told people now I pick my battles when I go for this ownership, this board, and I've let a lot of things go, transfers, blah, blah, blah. I am not letting this thing with David Pleat and everything go. And I'm going to be, when I bring people on, I'm going to get their views again. Obviously, you've seen this, Phil. It dominated. It's kicking off all over the place. I've seen some people going, oh, well, David Pleat got into trouble off the pitch, blah, blah, blah. He did this, he did that. And they've come out and said, oh, it's fine. This is not fine, people. This is not fine. And I've said it before. People can disagree with me and people that Levy out about what Levy has brought to the football club and what he's done on the footballing side. Fine, I respect your opinion. May not agree with it, but that's your opinion. People may think on the business side, he's been incredible. And I will say on the commercial side, brilliant. Again, business-wise to the football team, no, he hasn't. But again, that's personal choice. This is on a bloody human level. This is, and the official lines has come out with, it wasn't booked by our official publisher. I am disgusted with this. I'm going to choose my words carefully. Wanker of an owner. I'm still keeping my calm. I'm not going back to the chat. This utterly disgusts me. And it just goes to show that this man has not got a human side to him. He's just an awful man, and I'm disgusted by it. Bill, what's been your reaction to hearing this news of lower than a snake's belly, digging himself even lower?
Yeah, listen, there's a few elements to unpack here, mate. But first of all, look, I know you've not changed, but you've tried to pick your battles with the whole criticism of the incumbents at the club and the leadership at the club. And I think it's, you know, how you've gone about it, I think has been exactly right. But look, I mean, this is just the latest in a long, I could say that for 30 minutes list of, absolutely shocking decisions. First and foremost, for me, there's two elements, right? There's the element of, as you've said, the personal human side. And as you pointed out, I think on a show yesterday, you know, this man, David Pleat, not only has been at Spurs for a lot longer than you have, Mr. Chairman, but has also worked for you for many years. So, you know, forget what he did in '87, forget all the rest of it, right? He's worked for you and the club for many years. He's stood up and been counted at times, whatever. But in the end, right, it's not just a human element. then and this is what I always find fascinating about Mr. Levy, it's the not being able to read the room. For someone who's so successful in business, a massive part of business these days is reputational risk. Okay.
Yep.
And the fact that God knows what Donna Cullen has done in her PR career before Spurs, but I would love, more than Levy maybe, I'd love to have a chat with Donna, right, and find out what is her thought process behind this stuff. Because look, I get it that Pleat's talking his own book, forgive the pun. He's saying it from his point of view. Levy will have his side of the story, and he might be like, oh my God, he's gone public with this. I was sorting this out, this, and the other, whatever. And to a certain extent, look, just to play devil's advocate for a second, if we have got, as a club, a book deal with a certain publisher and someone else has published it, it might cause a firestorm to actually have another book published in the club shop. I get that. But just give the bloke a room, a meeting room, the press conference room, whatever, to let the bloke launch his book as a human element. And the whole thing about his seat, I mean, look, we could talk for hours about this. Ironically, one of the games I did go to, I did see Mr. Pleat walking out of the stadium. So he obviously had got a ticket. There was obviously availability for that game. So, he got sorted out.
He actually, Philly, I don't know if you were with us. He actually, we spoke to him briefly. He parks his car behind where we protest. So every game whilst we were setting up,
what, in St. Francis?
He used to park in that school car park. Now, I will.
Shout out St. Francis de Sales, great school.
There is some stuff. I mean, first of all, I cannot see a publicist saying, do you know what? He's doing this for motor neurons disease and in love for his wife.
Against the reputational risk.
Exactly.
Let me
just get you back with one thing, then I'll let you go. Is if they could not do it in the club shop, we cannot give you room in the club shop, although NFL we can do when it's pink or whatever. We'll strip everything out and put pink and everything in. Why can't you put it online? Where it takes up no space, where it takes up nothing. You can just put it online there and go, this is and you know what? And the thing is, if Levy does turn around and go, oh, do you know what? We've realised you've done this when you tried to furlough staff. This isn't if he turns around and goes, oh, okay, yeah, we were trying to fix it. No. Spurs fans have come out and spoken again. You've realized, because I'm not joking. Whether, like you said, with Cullen or whoever it is, surely the team that's around him would say, Daniel, what the fuck are you doing?
Stinks. But Brian, this brings up something, right? Let's just say it is a cast iron book deal, because you'd think that the ultimate businessman would have cast iron business deals, right? Yep. And so if he wasn't able to push it online, if he couldn't, sell it in a club shop, whatever, surely to Christ, you could send a message out to everyone on the Spurs members, Spurs season ticket holders, whatever. Give the guy a free bit of publishing in the Spurs program next game, whatever it is. Get him on the pitch at half time to promote the book, whatever it is. Do something, right, to help out. But the biggest thing I think is, Brian, and this takes me back. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but just, what this reminds me a bit of? The whole criticism about Oasis and Ticketmaster and these, the whole ticket fiasco and the dynamic pricing. Okay. There's a bloke called Justin Hawkins, who is the lead singer of Darkness, who, famous about 20 years ago. He made a point where if you're a recording artist and you're a big enough diva, basically you can get what you get what you want. So if you were to say, as Oasis, I want our ticket pricing to be X. If Ticketmaster want to sell the tickets, they're going to have to do what you want. If you don't want to have dynamic ticket pricing, you will do what you want. Now, look, don't get me wrong. Do I think either of the Gallagher brothers are sitting there going through the minutiae? I can't even say it at this stage. The small print of the deal with Ticketmaster and were aware of these? I'd like to think not. But as soon as it became an issue, grip the problem. And this is the same thing. I'm not going to slate Levy if he were to make a U-turn. Is it too little, too late? Yeah, probably. But I pray to Christ that he does make a U-turn on this and so many other things, because it should be done. But my point is, if Levy, even if there is a cast iron business deal with whoever, HarperCollins or whichever, publisher you want out there, if he was to say, listen, I'm Daniel Levy, we're Tottenham Hotspur, this is for motor neuron disease, it's an ex-manager who's been part of this club for years. If you don't do what I say, I'm going to say that you stopped us doing it. And how's that going to look? Yeah, they'll do it. They'll do it. Well, there's ways and means around everything. But the problem I've got, Brian, is, do either of us, or does anyone in the chat, or anyone watching, or Danny yourself, when you watch this back, in the cold light of day, look at yourself in the mirror. Do we, in our heart of hearts, think he even thought about any of this? Of course not. It isn't even on his radar. It's not even. It goes to the Super League. It goes to the furlough. It goes to ticket pricing. It goes to seniors. It goes to everything to do with the fans. Literally, it doesn't even occur to him that what he's deciding could even possibly be the wrong thing. Well, and that's what's wrong. That's what's wrong. It's sometimes not what you do in life. To err is human. We all make mistakes. I've made 50 million mistakes trying to log on to this session tonight, right? God bless the central line. Big up. Everything's great about the central line except the heat, how often they run, and the fact that it's a certain colour that we don't mention in front of the children. Yep. But in the end of the day, if you F up, try and learn from it. There's a saying, you fall forwards, right? Everyone fails. Try and learn from it. Get better next time. Levy makes mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake. And that's usually only one season. Do you know what I mean? I literally, sometimes, this is the biggest thing, Brian. I sometimes wish someone like me or you were on the fab. Not just so, we could get our elbows out and give it the old, Levy, you're this, you're that. To just say, look, mate, calm down. This is what my thoughts are on it as a match-going fan. Don't do this, because it will show you and the club in a horrific light, right? And look, full disclosure, I want to say this. Look, I respect Pleat. His knowledge of football is phenomenal, right? And we'll maybe go on to the eyes and ears comment. But me personally, he wasn't my favourite manager, because, ultimately, I think we maybe would have won in 87 with a few more tweaks. And he did. And this is something my dad's never, shout out my dad, shout out Pops, he's never forgiven Pleat for. He said to Graham Roberts, go and kick people up in Scotland, and sold Graham Roberts, who, let's be fair, won us one of our major trophies in the club's history. So, but he deserves respect. He deserves to be treated with full respect for what he's done for the club over many, many years. So stop messing about, Levy. Start to read the room. Get rid of Cullen. Get someone like Dagul involved. Or if not myself, if I can be bothered turning up after work, I'll give you a quick shout. Get on the phone to me, mate. Give me a call.
I will say, I'm when you said fab, I'm not going to get into it. There's someone on the fab that's, I'm going to stop there before I get myself in trouble. But I will say, when it comes to what Paddy said, and I will agree with this, because I even put, when it comes to food banks in the community, when it comes to the knife crime, and they've done it for 10 years, there are some wonderful, wonderful things Spurs do for the community, and there's no getting away from that. The Tottenham Hotspur Foundation, all of that is brilliant. The part of this is when it comes to the fans, and when it comes to ex-legends of this football club, or ex-people that have given. You got to remember, this guy was there for Irving Scholar, he's there for Alan Sugar, he's been there the whole of Levy's reign. He's
got the unholy trifecta, mate. 3 people have tried to ruin this football club.
Exactly. And like I said yesterday, the bit that gets to me is when this comes to football, and I'm going to mention it again. When Cristiano Ronaldo lost his child in the most tragic of circumstances, early birth or whatever, I can't remember the exact, but it was it's a pain that no one should ever have to go through. Never, ever should they have to go through. I unfortunately only suffered it via miscarriage at the very, very, very early stages, but I've never been there. So, but when that happened, Manchester United were playing Liverpool at Anfield, and Manchester United, sorry, the Liverpool fans at Anfield within 7 minutes stopped, clapped for Ronaldo, and literally sang "You Never Walk Alone." There are football fans in the world that will drop the rivalry for moments. You saw it when Kobe Bryant died. Now, when someone's this is a bit. It's just a really, really bad look. And like I said, I will. Yeah, John. There'll be quite a few things. There's quite a few things I'd like to say to him.
We need to do a separate show just on that.
Yeah, one of the things I'd like to say to him is let's go to the top of the skywalk and see if gravity still exists. That would be one of the first things I'd like to say to him. But yes, I'm going to stop there before I get myself into even more trouble. But yeah, like I said, I hope something gets done about this. I hope during the North London derby, people will scream and shout David Pleat's Blue and White Army to try and wring some truth through to him. And I just hope that something happens. I will also mention as well with Bukayo Saka.
It's Saka. But look, back in our heyday, Brian, when Rocky Roadcastle passed away, you know, Spurs fans, you know, did what was right. And to be fair, look, there's no love lost between me and the Gooners, but they were very supportive when Gary Lineker's child had leukemia when he was playing for us. So look, football fans are just normal people, you know, generous at heart, sometimes cruel, sometimes kind. But I think, look, you know what it is, and you could be, you know, the most down the line, you know, just normal Commonwealth Garden Spurs fan who couldn't give a, you know, who about Levy or whoever's running the club, just wants to go to support Spurs like we all do and enjoy themselves and couldn't really be bothered Levy out, Levy in, whatever. But
yes, I've just received something as well. I am going to say, but I'm not going to say who sent it to me. Spurs don't listen to the Fab. I am on the committee, and no matter what we advise, they don't listen. Not going to say who sent that, but that has just been sent to me. So whoever is, maybe
Brian, don't say their name, but what does it rhyme with? No, I'm joking.
No. I am a man of my word.
Secrecy. But listen, what I'm saying is the difficulty is all the good things, right? The perceived good things, and I'm not even just saying perceived, very good things that Levy and the club have done, you know, in their tenure, just get absolutely thrown against the wall, and you know, just they might as well not bother. All the stuff with the food banks and the massive help to the local community that the foundation does, and Levy has got to take credit for that because he set up the foundation. But it all means nothing because they literally couldn't give less of a rat's arse about the fans and about seniors. And just look, even in COVID, on one hand you had the furlough, but on the other hand we opened up the stadium and they were using it for, you know, for antenatal stuff, and you know that people go in there to have ultrasounds, find out about, you know, how their babies were doing, and you know they were running the midwife section for the North Mid Hospital in, you know, in the Spurs, you know, in basically the changing rooms of Spurs. Phenomenal stuff. But you know, it's almost like, and this is where I sometimes think, is Levy a Gooner? I just wonder, you know, is this the ultimate sort of trolling? Is he just not one of us after all these years? I don't know. It seems to me like self-sabotage sometimes. It really does.
It does. And just to show people again, because we're going to wrap it up there, but I'm going to give you a moment again, Phil, and I am to say we aren't the official publishers of these charities. We aren't even the official person doing the walk, but it's a Spurs fan and a Spurs legend that needs to get a message out there. So once again, this channel will be supporting Phil the whole way, and we will make sure these links come up on Evening Brews every day until he does the walk on Saturday. Phil, again, so the two charities are The Parkinson's and the dreams come true, I believe, is like Make-A-Wish in America, isn't it?
Yes, so it's very similar to Make-A-Wish. So for children with disabilities and with very serious conditions, they basically make sure they can have really good experiences for them and their families, and do a lot of good work there. So we picked that generally because it's a phenomenal cause, but unfortunately, fortunately for the Parkinson's Society in the UK, but we picked Parkinson's because one of my colleagues' dad suffered for about 20 years with Parkinson's before he recently passed away. So we're doing it in memory of his dad, and to honour him, and also to try and help ease the burden of what's a horrific condition. I know some people in the chat have got loved ones that have suffered the same thing. But yeah, anything, guys and gals, anything you can spare. And look, I'm not sure if you believe in this sort of thing, but just in case it is a thing, why don't we send some positive vibes from the Spurs community out into the universe? Every pound you donate may just build a little brick in the wall that is going to defend those set pieces and is going to help that ball just bobble correctly past their goalkeeper into their net, and make sure we win a famous victory. So let's create good vibes out there. Yeah, good things happen to good people every now and then. So let's donate, let's do what's needed, and let's hope that I get back from this charity walk in one piece in time to have a quick refreshment before I cheer the boys on from Block 258. Shout out to everyone in Block 258 as well. But big up Brian, big up everyone in the Tottenham on Tour family, everyone in the chat. I love you all. I'll just be back in the chat as normal from straight after this. But yeah, listen, Brian, always a pleasure chewing the fat with you, my brother. Nothing but love for you and the missus and all the cats. And yeah, listen, roll on Sunday. And listen, if Arteta wants to fake some COVID tests, I've got the last 2 boxes in my cupboard. So bell me up, Arteta. Yeah.
I will say as well, the links are in the description of this show. We will be doing our mental health special, but we're going to need to work out once my recovery from the surgery and everything is good. You're saying big up the wife. She's literally just come to bed. She's got a migraine and finished work early. So it's a good time. We're finishing now. Phil, it is always a pleasure. Guys and girls, thank you very much for tuning in. We will be back tomorrow with morning brews and evening brews. Like, comment, share, subscribe. David Pleat and his blue and white army. And as always, Levy out.